All right, now back to our exit interviews. Thomas Chabot, a season that I think he would describe as frustrating, but when he was healthy, I think Sens fans would describe as encouraging. Pilsy, how would you sum up the season of Thomas Chabot?
Yeah, I think in the short amount of time he was able to play this season, which unfortunately was only 51 games. 30 points in 51 games is pretty solid for Thomas Chabot. I feel like he found a way to contribute in different ways than in years past, where before he was always the number one defenseman on the number one power play unit. Whereas this year, Jake Sanderson kind of took his spot there. So Thomas Chabot had to find other ways to contribute. And he's one of those guys similar to Jake Sanderson, where his skating is a big part of his attributes. He's able to get back on plays. He's able to pinch a little bit more risky because he knows he's got the speed to get back if he needs to. And he's just a smooth skating defenseman out there. So I know we talked a lot about how is this decor going to shape up next year? Chabot or Chychrun, maybe one of those guys have to go. I really think that Thomas Chabot fits into this team a lot better. And I think if you can get some more health from him, he's going to be a major impact for this team when they start winning games.
And with Thomas Chabot, it's worth noting that he is going to have a minor wrist surgery. If not, he's already had it in the last week or so. Bruce Garriock reporting that. And he just wasn't right this season. Apparently, that wrist has been bothering him upwards of 2 years. So it's different than the lower body injury he dealt with throughout the season. But like, that's got to be something where they have to get it taken care of. But it sounds like he's going to be back ready in time for a complete summer of training. So we won't hear at training camp that, oh, he's just starting to get back on the ice or whatnot. So huge summer for him, I believe. And when you look at the end of the season, like he came back, sure, Billsy, against New Jersey, like for that last stretch. Those last 7 games were, I'm assuming, for conditioning more than anything. Like he was able to play, but he wasn't the same as he was for the rest of the season, only contributing 1 goal, 1 assist. And that goal was a net front tip with a minute left in front of Montreal to get the tying goal. We were boots on the ground for that one. But when Thomas Chabot was at the peak of his season, was when he was snapping it around and using his vision. I thought he was really good at coming out of the zone, and instead of just kind of head down, and maybe this is a systems thing, maybe this is coinciding with Jacques Martin coming over, but I felt like his first pass out of the zone was a lot crisper than it maybe had been, or he was hitting guys in stride, and he was able to create more speed without having to do it himself. So conserving energy for him, but allowing the puck to do more of the work. So I'm hoping for more of that from Chabot, because when he gets in trouble is when he's trying to dangle too much, especially coming out of his own zone. And he's prone to giveaways. Most defensemen are when they're in those scenarios. So he's been moving the puck really well. We know offensively he's got the instincts. He's got the vision. 9 goals is a nice little kind of feather in his cap as well this year.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. I was looking through Chabot's offensive numbers, Ross, and I feel like people forget that this is a guy that had 55 points at one time. The 2018-2019 season.
I hate that season.
Yeah, it was a weird one, but Thomas Chabot doesn't hate that season. That's his career high, 55 points. So this is a guy that can be a premier offensive defenseman in the NHL. And I think with having Jake Sanderson carry a lot of that load that Thomas Chabot used to have to carry, I think Chabot can excel even more, where you got him playing a little bit less and up against other teams' second and third lines rather than every night up against top pairs when he's not really a shutdown guy. So I think this might benefit Chabot in a big way.
I think so too. And this was the first season in Thomas Chabot's career as well, where he wasn't the team leader in ice time. Sure, It was 10 seconds difference between him and Jake Sanderson. Obviously not in total ice time, but per game. Thomas Chabot played 23:03 per game this season. And even just from his own standpoint, forget about the comparisons with other guys on the team. For him, that's the fewest minutes per game he's played since his rookie season, when he averaged 17 minutes and 30 seconds. He's been above 24:15, and for the 3 seasons when DJ Smith took over, he was above 26 minutes per game.
Yeah.
Last year, he was down at 25, and this year, 23. So I love when Thomas Chabot is at 21 to 23 minutes a night. He's fresh. He's not looking exhausted out there. And man, I will maintain that I blame the Ottawa Senators for Thomas Chabot's non-linear development. I think that if they had handled him better in a developmental phase and not rushed him to be number one everything, 26 minutes a night, I think he would probably be more durable now because he's a tough guy. He's just getting these injuries now that you have to think it's like, well, is it wear and tear? Because this guy's played as many minutes as a 32-year-old, and he's only 26 still.
And hasn't sniffed the playoffs. Like that's the thing, Ross. Like if this was a team where Thomas Chabot early in his NHL career was battling for playoff position, sure, you got to put your top guys out there, play them 28 minutes a night. But how many hundreds of meaningless games did Chabot play more than 25 minutes? Like it was laughable at one point. Like there was times where Thomas Chabot was playing like 28 minutes for like 4 games in a row. And it's like, what is the point of this? Why are we just running this guy through the mud here? And that's where it would have been nice if Pierre Dorion could have, sheltered him a little bit more in those early years, given him some better guys on defense that could handle some of that responsibility. But it just felt like every single year it fell on him. And that's why, similar to your point, Ross, the wear and tear on him, it's no coincidence that it seems like at the end of every single year, he seems to have an injury. He's beat down from year after year of this. And at the end of the season, it's just too much for him. And you can't really blame him. So I really think that we're going to start to see a new Thomas Chabot now that Jake Sanderson has taken that role from him. And now he's an established NHL player. So if he can stay healthy, I don't see any reason why he's not within the 40 to 50 point range every single season. I mean, look, he only played 51 games and he had 30 points here. Like he could easily get to that mark.
And -3, believe it or not, he's done it twice in his career. It's the best season he's had, except for his game where he played 1 game, but he was -2 in that game, but still a better season overall. It was against the Coyotes. I still remember that game. They're like, oh, maybe you should go back to junior. Just 1 more year. Go dominate there. And then what's he do? Thomas Chabot became the only defenseman to ever win most valuable player at the World Juniors. This guy has the pedigree, and that's another guy where we always talk about, like, does this core have it? And it's like individually, they've all had so much success at different levels. It's like they are good players. It's about bringing them cohesively into a team, not a club, a team, Pilsy. I know you like that one. So Thomas Chabot, exit interview for him. 52% expected goals. That's the 4th best mark on the Ottawa Senators among defensemen after third after Sanderson and Zub. Thomas Chabot right there as well at 52%. So all in all, like a positive impact player analytically, positive impact player in terms of the counting stats. I thought that defensively he was better this season, and it all stems, we believe, our conclusion is that Thomas Chabot, less is more with Thomas Chabot. Finally, what do you think that he should be focusing on this summer? Something maybe you saw in his game where you're like, okay, maybe this could improve a little bit.
Well, Ross, I'm going to spin this a different way. It's not something about his game he needs to improve or change at all. I'm going to take a look at the inconsistency of defensive partners for Thomas Chabot. Now we're doing our exit interviews in D pairs. So we have him with Branny here, who is one of the guys he spent a decent chunk of time with. But Thomas Chabot actually spent most of his time with Jacob Chychrun, 342 minutes together. Did not work out. That experiment did not go the way they had hoped. So they split them up. And then he played 240 minutes with Eric Brandstrom. I thought that was okay. He spent 146 minutes with Jacob Bernard Docker. He spent 130 minutes with Artem Zub. What I'm getting at is, for a guy that only played 51 games, he shouldn't have had this many defensive partners. And since the moment Thomas Chabot was drafted, it seems like they've been trying to find a defensive partner for him. And they had one, Ross.
Quick, try to name as many as you can.
Well, okay. Ron Hainsey.
Yeah.
The guy I'm referring to that they need to get back, who was his best defense partner, Dylan DeMello.
Okay.
Well,
Nikita Zaitsev.
Yeah, Nikita Zaitsev, the guy he spent most time with.
Crazy.
Did he put I want to say Johnny Oduya even got in the mix with Thomas Chabot. I wouldn't be
for
that
his
surprised.
for his rookie year, I believe so. And then you can add in as well. Artem Zub was kind of brought in as like, the defensive responsible.
And when Jacob Bernard Docker was drafted, everyone's like, there's the guy. There's his partner that's going to work. Now, I still believe there could be a chance that works, but JBD can't be elevated to an everyday top 4 role just yet. So that's going to have to wait. I would love if they could find a way to bring Dylan DeMello back, get those two together again, or like we've already mentioned, a guy like Chris Tanev I think would make a great D partner for Chabot as well. So that's the thing, Ross, I think is going to be needed to look at to help Chabot here, is find him the right partner and allow them to have some consistency.
Let us know in the comments what you think about Thomas Chabot, not only last season, but going forward as a key member of the Senators blue line, a guy who's still signed for multiple years at $8 million per season.